Hi neighbor. Today I want to talk with you guys about something that's been on a lot of people's minds in the board gaming community today, and especially if you've been following Zombicide or if you're somebody that's been backing a lot of CMON campaigns or Kickstarters over the last few years, you may have heard the news, which is that Asmodee has acquired the Zombicide IP from CMON. And it's a big change, and it's one that comes during a season of change for both of these companies. But instead of treating this like just another headline, I wanted to take a moment with you and talk about what this means, not only for just Zombicide fans, but the gaming community at large. CMON used to be a powerhouse. It was, posting profits every year until about 2023. But earlier this year, things really shifted for the worse. They reported a loss of a couple $1 million, and revenue dropped significantly, and they paused all future crowdfunding and laid off a ton of staff. And I'm sure this hasn't been easy for anybody at CMON, particularly the employees that lost their jobs. And CMON is still working through the fulfillment of over $20 million in campaign pledges across 9 or 10 different games that they have in varying stages of development and delivery. And it is my sincerest hope that every backer that put their trust and money in CMON and its products receives what they ordered or is refunded fully. To talk more about what this means for a possible future with Zombicide and all of the different IPs that CMON has been selling off lately, we need to add a little bit more context to this acquisition. So Asmodee, who is the company that now owns the IP Zombicide, is a company with a much bigger scale than CMON. In Q3 of 2024, they reported 429 million euros in net sales, and that was up 11% over the previous year. And so this is a company that is in orders of magnitude larger than CMON has ever been. Their portfolio already includes Fantasy Flight, Days of Wonder, Plaid Hat, Z-Man, Catan Studios, as well as many others. And they're owned by a group of parent companies that in turn own a bunch of video game companies, ranging from THQ Nordic to Middle Earth and Gunfire Games to Ghost Ship. Any Deep Rock Galactic fans out there? Do it for Carl? No? All right, whatever. Also, they own Coffee Stain, so Valheim, baby. But this size of an organization brings a lot of opportunity to all of the IPs that they kind of collect underneath themselves. But obviously, it brings a lot of change and possible risk to what we already know and love. Hopefully, this acquisition will provide easier access to older expansions like Black Plague and Green Horde, better localization and consistent reprints, the capital to actually have things in inventory, as well as distribution will hopefully be better. And honestly, the opportunity that excites me the most is the potential for digital formats of these IPs that are now changing hands. But the risks are not few. I think the biggest one comes from the creativity side of things. We are definitely going to see less novelty in our big CMON Kickstarter releases. In fact, some of them aren't going to exist anymore. We're going to be saying goodbye to things like 3D battlements that, stick up off of the table in the middle of your board, and, the table presence of some of these things and the grandeur will likely be lost because these games are going to get streamlined. And that's going to be streamlining for logistics reasons, but also for appealing to a broader mass to increase sales numbers. So I think that is a risk and a problem, in my opinion, that we lose some of that creative flair and some of that chaos that we have come to know and love in a lot of these CMON title releases. Zombicide has been a huge part of my modern board gaming experience, and CMON has been its home for more than a decade at this point. And for all the excitement that they've delivered to me, there have been bumps along the way. I've experienced the Kickstarter delays, I've experienced the fulfillment issues, and certainly the tendency to overstuff boxes with stuff that isn't necessarily relevant or balanced or tested oftentimes. And at the same time, Asmodee, the new parent company of the Zombicide IP, they've been moving through a wave of acquisitions, and they're, snapping up these little companies all over the place. And that can feel not great when these giant companies come in and consolidate everything under their umbrella. And I think it's fair to ask, what happens to the creativity when this happens? But here's what I'd like to offer instead of cynicism or panic. Change is opportunity. It's not always easy, it's not always tidy, but it's full of potential if we stay curious. Because sometimes a shakeup invites new voices. Sometimes fresh leadership gets a beloved game to evolve. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, a big shift helps the people who are making the games be able to breathe again. A week ago, CMON sold off a bunch of other IPs as well. There was Blood Rage and Ankh, and we don't really know the reasons why. But if you zoom out a bit, I really hope that they are doing some soul searching over there. And Asmodee, they might be the stewards that Zombicide needs, for now, if they're listening. Because at the heart of all of this, beyond the plastic and the boxes and the rules and the experiences, are people. You and me, the designers, the developers, all of these people who have created a universe, whether they know it or not, together. People who are trying to make something joyful, people trying to connect, and people like us who find joy in these worlds. So today, I just want to say to everybody at CMON, thank you for the memories and the monsters and the mayhem. And to Asmodee, I hope you treat this IP with the same sense of play that we bring to the table. And to all of you out there, whether you play solo or with your friends or just with your kids on a rainy Saturday, I'm glad that we share this hobby. And I hope that we keep showing up with kindness and curiosity and maybe just a little more patience for one another. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and take care of yourself and also the people at your table. Thanks for all the love in the comments lately, and keep your eyes peeled for some Bloodborne content coming later this week. Cheers.